I was on mute. Okay. Hi, hey everyone. My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional graphic designer and illustrator, and I'm happy to have you for this Sunday's Paint With Me Live, where we will be working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot as we do on every Sunday. We've made it to the halfway point of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So I have currently 39 cards complete. So I'm super excited about that. I'm getting a little bit of a warning, so I'm hoping that the live is coming through clear for you guys. If not, we'll roll with it as best we can, as we always do. So today we're going to be picking back up with the Four of Cups. So after last Sunday's live stream, I did go ahead and get the female character about 98 or so percent done. So we will, I don't know if I want to finish her. Like all I have to do is her feet. So maybe we'll work on that. And then we'll just sort of move around the canvas. But before we do, let me set this microphone down. What I would like to do is actually show you guys the 39th card of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, because I'm really, really excited about that. Now, again, if you are new here, first of all, welcome, whether you're watching this live or the replay. And before we get into it, because I'm already jumping off into what we come to get into, do me a huge favor and hit the like button. So far, I only have one like. There are 5 people watching, so I would love to have 5 likes. So whether you're watching this live or the replay, please do me that solid. Please do hit the like button. That helps me out so much, because that lets YouTube know that you like this content, that you like and support the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, and that you think other people would like it as well, because they'll recommend it to people who like the things that you like. So please do me that solid. The other way that you can support me is by visiting the description down below. There are all kinds of links of how you can purchase artwork. So if you like my artwork, you like my art style, there are links for that. There are also links for you to be able to hire me if you would like. If you have a project that you think I would be a great fit for, you can do that as well. So all of that is down in the description. All right, so Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So Wednesday, during our Bring Your Own Project Live, I got pretty close to being done, and I just went on and finished it at the end of the live, just sort of after the live stream was over with. So I'll show you what that looks like. This is the Four of Pentacles. This officially marks our halfway point with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, so I'm really happy about that. Now, of course, it took me 6 years to get to this point, but what I will say is, now that we're in the Minor Arcana cards, they seem to be coming together a lot faster than the majors did. So hopefully I can kind of keep the momentum going. I think doing the live streams definitely helps me out a whole lot, because it sort of makes me make time to work on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So I'm not necessarily distracted. I have 2 days that I sit and work and share with you guys the process. So really excited about that. So 39 cards we are done with. Now this is, and it is opening, this is the Four of Pentacles. So this is a card that we haven't talked too much about, just sort of off and on as we worked through, just sort of off and on, at the beginning and the end of those Wednesday streams. So it came together pretty much the way I envisioned it to come together. I'm really happy about that. So what we have here is our, and I don't think I have the original still with me. We'll check and see real quick in the, there it is. Okay, so this is the original Four of Pentacles from the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot, which is what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot is based upon. And in this image, we have a man who's wearing a crown, and he has 4 coins, one on top of his crown, one sort of in his midsection covering his throat, heart, and solar plexus chakras. And then he has 2 underneath his feet. Now, seems like he's sort of holding on to these coins, but he's also showing them off, in my humble opinion, because he is wearing a crown and he does have them on display. He is also isolated and sort of seated by himself away from the city. And so I kind of wanted to play up that. I did get very close, I believe, to the source material. But to me, this card reads as a greed card. And this is also a card about conservation, about being very conservative with your money. But he's also showing it off. So I had to wanted to play with those 2 personalities. So someone who is hoarding the gold, but someone who has absolutely no qualms about spending it on himself. So I created a character and I modeled him after the Magician card. So the Magician from this particular deck. I dressed him like the Magician. He's not exactly like it, but close enough, I believe. I used one of the coins as sort of a medallion for him to wear. I put one of the coins in his lap, one on the barrel that he's sitting on, and then one at his feet. And I had a really good time with this. Now, I wasn't really sure whether or not I wanted to put this character sort of in the middle of the country or sort of isolated from the city, but I knew that I wanted to have some sort of broken concrete look. So our last Sundays, or not last Sunday, the Wednesday before last, what I did was sort of pencil in the city, penciled in some of the concrete foundation, just so I can have a good idea of what that might look like, so that I can kind of explore it later. And of course, as I am creating these cards or any illustration that I'm working on, whether I'm working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot or not, what I like to do is sort of give myself room to be creative, right? So I want to give myself room for happy accidents, and I want to give myself room to sort of pivot if I need to, right? So I wanted to lay that in to see how it looked. I liked how it looked. Luckily, I actually had a skyline brush that sort of helped me simplify the process, which I don't think it would have been very difficult to paint in a skyline, but that helped save quite a bit of time. And then from there, I used a perspective ruler, which is something that I have in, or not a perspective ruler, this was actually a perspective guide, which helped me lay in sort of the foundation of the concrete, right? So that we can create a background, a middle ground, and a foreground. So I'll kind of make that a little bit darker so you guys can see what that looks like. So with this, I was able to position my horizon line. So I set the horizon line wherever I wanted my horizon to be. And I really determined that based on how I wanted the concrete to sort of lay at his feet, right? So wherever let's see if I can zoom in so you guys can see a little bit better. So there are 3 sets of lines. There is a red line, or actually 4, I guess. There is a red line, there's a green line, there's a blue vertical line, and then there is a yellow horizon line. So I was paying very close attention to where these green lines lay, because that sort of gave me an idea of how the ground would look, right? So I would tilt my horizon line, which is this yellow line in the back, in a way that gave me the green sort of angle that I wanted. And from there, I was able to sort of draw in shapes that kind of got close to what I was going for. And the further back I go, the less detailed those shapes became and the smaller they became. So that gives us the illusion of a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. So I really like how this card came out. I'm happy with it. I'm glad to be done. I'm glad to be halfway done with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. And it sounds kind of funny to me saying it out loud, because I have been working on this project for so long. But I mean, it's just a testament of how much work goes into a tarot deck project. And so I'm really happy to have you guys here along for the ride. So we're not going to save him, but we're going to jump right back into our 4 of Cups. So yeah, setting aside time to be able to work on this project has definitely been probably one of the best decisions that I've made. And we're coming up on a year of streaming. So the streams were designed, actually I didn't know I was going to be streaming for a year, right? So I was like, I'm going to try this one stream. I'm going to set aside this time to do it. If I say I'm going to do it live, then that means that I have to sort of show up and work on this particular project. And so setting aside that time, just that one time, that was June 30th of last year, 2024, I was like, okay, let me try it. We talked about this last Sunday. I was very, very nervous and terrified to create in a public setting. Even though it's just a few of us watching, it was very nerve-wracking for me to be able to do that in a very public setting. But once I sort of got over the fear of that, sort of did the thing I was afraid to do, it helped me out a whole lot because, again, it set aside specific time for me to work on this particular project. So now we're on our 4 of Cups. So this will be card number 40 if I don't finish the next one, because the next one will be the 4 of Swords. And we will start that one Wednesday during the Bring Your Own project stream. So if you like a less chatty stream, if you like to just sort of listen to music and watch me work and work along with me, whether you're studying, you're cleaning, or whatever it is that you're doing, join me on Wednesday. And we aim for about 12:45 or so, but this last Wednesday I was a little bit late because baby life was lifing. And so we got there when we got there, but we did show up and I did get the work done. So really excited about that. So yeah, we're working on our 4 of Cups. Now, again, just as a reminder, this is the reference scene that I created here in Clip Studio Paint using 3D models, as well as just a reference that I pulled off of Pexels. So if you are an artist and you are looking for references, Pexels is usually the first place I go to look, even for B-rolls, or like even for the videos that I do that are like the standalone videos. Anytime you see B-roll in there, whether it's like, kids painting or college students or whatever the B-roll is, I usually get it off of Pexels if I don't shoot it myself. And I like it because it's all royalty free imagery, right? So I can do whatever I want to do with this image, so long as I credit. I believe that's how it goes. So long as you credit the photographer or something like that. I'm not really sure. So I pulled a tree that I really liked from Pexels, and I arranged it in such a way that gave me a very interesting composition. I wanted to actually had two options for the male character. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to have him peeking around the tree to offer her the cup, or if I wanted him to be sort of more in her line of sight, or where she could easily see him, where it wouldn't look like she was, sad and depressed. And, I don't know. I was just going for a specific look. I believe having him in the foreground gave this image a little more visual interest. So we're just going to jump back in. So now I left off, and I'll turn off this sketch just so I can show you guys what that looks like. So again, I do not draw with line art. I do have a solid sketch, something that kind of helps me see where things are supposed to go. But as I am developing the illustration, the sketches sort of go away, right? I do not use line art in my work, and that's just a personal preference. That is something that I really don't have any other reason that I just don't want to, just don't want to, right? And for the look that I would like to go for, it's for the most part pretty unnecessary. Where I do have something somewhat similar, I guess, to a line art is where we sort of get into making sure that I'm adding contrast to the image, right? So I know that last Sunday we were working on this. I noticed that this part of her arm sort of bled into the other, so you could not see where her arm bent. So in order to remedy that, that's where I sort of add some lines. But in terms of like doing a whole extra line art step, I don't do that, right? Unless I'm doing like a coloring book or something like that. But this is how our character looks so far, without the sketch present. And as I would say, again, 99% complete. I just have to do her toes. And I might skip over that for right now. What I would actually like to do is work on this tree. Now, again, you guys have heard me say this a couple of times, where landscapes are the area of art that I feel like I need probably the most improvement, but I do pretty good. I do all right. I don't do too bad. So we're going to go ahead and try to we're going to succeed in going on and rendering out this tree. Now, I do have an idea in mind. I am using the tree in my reference, but I have other tree references that I would like to lean on, right? So I really like how the leaves sort of grow on top, so I want to kind of do something like that. I also had a tree here where it twists, so we'll be able to sort of jigsaw together some references and things like that. In terms of color, I think for this particular tree, the color of our reference is a little bit, actually, let me move this singing bowl. I'm going to take this out just so I can kind of move around a little bit easier through the trees. This is a little more yellow than I would like, right? So I'll probably go in and choose some of these green tones as I add texture and things like that. But what I would actually like to do is go back to one of these references and pull a color from here. And then this is where my beautiful opaque brush comes in mind, because this brush has a lot of texture, right? It has a lot of the texture that I am looking for. Make sure that we are on the right layer. I'm hitting the Windows key on my computer, even though I'm working on an Apple computer. So this will be the control button on an Apple keyboard, which is what it would be, right? You would hit that and tap on the tree layer. That allows me to select the entire tree. From here, I'm actually going to label the second layer tree details. And then we're just going to play with it, right? So again, as you guys will hear me say often, we're not necessarily aiming for perfection. Just want to get into some broad strokes. I do know where I would like to add, so it's already giving me a really, really nice texture, right? I love this brush. I use this brush for so many different things because it is such a versatile brush. Now, again, I only paint with maybe 3. This brush, I use the... what do I use? I use the Hotline brush, which is a brush that I got from the artist Eric Anthony, and I also use a smudge brush, right? So these brushes sort of allow me to add texture and sort of play with different things. Now I may go into some of the specialty brushes just to sort of get a little more movement, right, in this. But right now I'm just sort of laying in some shadow tones, and I'm sort of following the curvature of what I've already laid down here, and then we'll go back and forth. Now I'm not doing this in a way that shows up very opaque. I kind of want that lighter color to peek through, right? So I'm just sort of playing around, just laying this down, nothing super serious at all. Remembering that I want to have that sort of green mossy look to this particular, to like the tops of the branches and things like that. So I'm just going to add in where I feel like a good shadow would go, something like this. And we'll sort of use our sketch again as our guideline, and we're not aiming for perfection at all. And I think for something like this, that's probably the best way to go, because we don't want our tree to feel overly modeled, right? We don't want our tree to feel overly rendered. We want it to feel like a tree. We want it to have the roughness of a tree. And so we're going to give it that, right? So again, I'm using the opaque brush. This is just a regular, I believe this is a default brush for Clip Studio Paint, which is the program that I'm working in. So I believe this is a default brush. I do not recall purchasing this brush. It could be one of my leftover Photoshop brushes. I have no idea, but it's just a regular old chalk brush. So if you can come across a chalk brush, to me, those do wonderfully with texture, right? All right, so I'm just adding these in, and I might go in and actually go back to my original reference and grab some of that greenish color, right, like this. And we'll add this in like this, so that gives us a little more shadow and a little more depth to what it is that we're remembering our character's hair is green, right? So we don't want to do too much of this green, because we want her hair to stand out against whatever it is that we add in. But anywhere I want to go darker, since this seems to be a much darker tone, I'm just going to add that in like so, right? It's coming together really well and really quickly. And if I'm having trouble seeing my sketch, all I would have to do is actually go in. Let me do this differently. All I would have to do is go in and raise the opacity of my sketch, right? So right now I have my sketch set to multiply, and I have it set low enough. I have it at 46% opacity, which means it shows up 46% of the way on our illustration, right? So if I wanted it to be a little bit darker, so if things are getting lost in the sauce, and I'll just pull it up some so I can see it a little bit better. So if I'm looking at these branches, really we talk a lot about breaking illustrations down into basic shapes. The basic shape of each of these branches is a cylinder, right? So think like this water bottle is a cylinder shape. Each one of those branches is just a cylinder. It just has sort of ragged edges and things like that. But if we're looking at this particular cylinder, I have a light source coming from my left-hand side. So that means that the light will hit here, and then there's a shadow underneath here. So in order for us to create this roundness, we'll sort of just take into consideration that each of these branches are cylinders. We have to be very practical when we're doing our work. We don't necessarily have to overthink things like that. If I look at, okay, this is a cylinder here, right? This is a cylinder here. This is a cylinder. This is a cylinder, right? That makes it a whole heck of a lot easier for us to render out this particular image, right? This particular aspect of the image. So that's all I'm taking into consideration. I am remembering where I'm placing the shadow. So if I have a shadow on the bottom of the branch, because of course the sun is probably beaming through the top of the tree, I want to make sure I keep that consistent, right? We'll do that. And it looks like, following this light guideline, looks like there's a little bit of a shadow here. So we'll just kind of keep all of this in mind. And maybe this part is lighter because maybe this sits behind this branch, right? So maybe we don't have the shadow so much there, but we do have it here, and that pushes this one back. All right, so that's how we're going to do this. We're just laying in colors, right? Doesn't have to be anything fancy at all. If I need to adjust colors, I'll go over to my color picker. For instance, that's a little bit darker than I would like, so I'll just go and increase the value, right? So I'll get sort of this lighter mossy look, and I can place that in the areas that I want highlighted, right? Also keeping that light brown color in, and then I can just sort of push and pull some of this dark area like so. Now if I wanted to do even more with the texture, I would grab one of my smudge brushes, likely smudgy, or I have one that's called Frost that gives a really nice frosted texture, and I'll just sort of move around some of this information so that it's giving me exactly the texture that I want it to give. So this is how we're doing. Now, if I were to turn this off, see what we're looking like. Not too bad, right? We're having a little bit of different trouble differentiating between each of the branches, so we'll come in with some more solid lines a little bit later to make each of those points stand out. So I hope you guys are having a good Sunday today. It is hot and we have passed the summer solstice, so here in Memphis it is extremely hot here. So I hope you guys are staying cool and drinking plenty of water, staying hydrated, and all of those wonderful things. And again, whether you're watching this live or the replay, I really appreciate you for being here. This is definitely, again, I say this every Sunday because I mean it. This is a passion project of mine. Again, I've started this bad boy 2019, and we're just now halfway done. So I don't know if I should be like ashamed of that. I'm really not. But I don't know if that's like my goodness, this is taking you that long to get this far. You know, it has. That is the truth, and that is a part of the journey. So I'm just really sort of enjoying the process of creating this project. I'm in no particular hurry to get it done. I used to be, right? I used to feel like, oh my goodness, it is taking me way too long. Nowadays, not so much. I think I'm appreciating the time that I have to spend to work on this to be, the best that I can possibly make it. Because I always think anytime I see someone like doing something that they're like dreaming of doing, and they take however long it is that they take, and they really put like their heart and soul into it, that's usually like the best project they've ever done. Right? And then when commercial starts to happen and they start to make a little bit of money and start to feel the pressure to produce things faster, the quality to me tends to suffer. So being able to just sit here and take my time with it, even though things are going a lot faster now, right, than they have in the past, but being able to sit and take my time with it, I feel, for one, is a blessing just to have the time to do it. And two, I think that the quality of the end result we'll see it, right? You know what I mean? We'll sort of see it. Don't feel any pressure to, do this any faster than than what it's doing. Life won't allow it because I have other things going on. So we'll just, set aside, like to say, this time to be able to work on this dream project. So I hope that you guys, just watching me over this last year of streaming and over the last 6 years, if you've been following that long since I've started this project, I hope that this has inspired you guys to sort of go after something that you want to do, right? Because the way that the world is sort of going, it's easy to sort of fall into the trap of fear, because there's a lot of fear mongering, right? It's really easy for us to sort of get paralyzed in fear, or get paralyzed in the need to have things perfect and sort of always lined up and all that. And I speak this from experience because that is very much a lived experience. Like, I was afraid that if I didn't have certain ducks in a row, then I wouldn't be able to do whatever it is. I'm hoping that watching me work on this right, inspires you guys to go after what it is that you want. Because if you don't, it won't get done. Like, it just will not get done. And before you know it, we're all elders and we got grandkids or great grands if we live long enough to do that. And we're just sort of wishing we had done different things, or we're take that out on our children and live vicariously through them, when you can just live your own life, right, and sort of create the things that you want to see in the world. So that is sort of my mission, to create this tarot deck. Now, just dreaming out loud, and I'm going to put it out there, what I would love to do after this tarot deck is published is to create like a companion oracle to go with it, because I just think that would be so freaking awesome. I really do. One of my favorite tarot decks which is where I got the size for this one from, is the Crow Tarot. That one has an oracle that goes with it, and I like how they pair together, right? So you have the tarot deck, and then if you need some clarification, then you just pull like from the Crow Tarot. Has the same energy. I like that a lot, right? So I would love to have a companion oracle to go with it. Now, I've turned off my sketch. And so before, where we were having trouble differentiating between branches, now it's coming together a lot clearer, right? Because we're adding that contrast and those highlights in different places. Now, again, this is not perfect. That's not the intention. We just sort of want to lay in the foundation of a tree, and then we can come in and add texture on top of this texture, right? So that it'll really give us the idea of an actual tree. Now, because she's sitting against this tree, we do want it to be slightly darker around her, because she's going to create a shadow, right? She's sort of laying against this tree. We want to make sure that it looks like she is. And by turning off the sketch, it sort of allows me to do this without the distraction of the extra lines being there. So we'll just sort of add in some shadow and things like that. And it just, as long as it looks good to you, right? As long as it looks good to me, that's sort of where we're going with it. We want to make it make sense. So again, if I have a shadow on this, on like sort of the bottom, I don't want to put a shadow on the top, right? And the only reason that we have it here in this area is because these are two different branches. So this branch will also have sort of the shadow in between, and that helps us separate the two, right? So we want to keep our lighting consistent as much as possible. We do want to keep in mind that, you know, this, again, just does not have to be perfect. That these are cylinders and that we're approaching this like a set of cylinders. And if I want to pull a color, we'll just grab a color. If that's too dark, we'll undo it and we'll lighten it up a little bit. And we'll just sort of add some of this. So this is to say maybe there's some moss growing on this old oak tree, right? And so we're getting all of this in. And this is where, I don't know, this is, for me, it's fun, right? So this part is a whole lot of fun, because you can make it anything you want it to be, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. Nature isn't perfect. And fun fact, there are no straight lines in nature. So we don't have to have this be a beautifully straight up and down tree. You know, we wanted to have bumps and grooves and things like that. So that's auto saving. But while it does, and it's not going to take long because we don't have much, but while it does, I do want to show you guys as a reminder what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot looks like. So again, started this bad boy at the end of 2019. At the beginning of sort of, I guess, at the pandemic, because I ended up getting sick at the end of 2019. I'm not really sure what that was, but I ended up getting sick. But anyhow, started that then. We have about 39, we have 39 cards done. So we're officially at the halfway mark for this particular project. And I'm super excited about it. Very, very happy with the progress that I'm able to, or have been able to complete on this bad boy. I am at a point where, as an artist, I'm surprising myself, right? So some of this stuff, you know, of course, I have had in mind for years and years and years. Some of this I never even saw you know, happening, right? So I think that's also been a very fun aspect of creating this. Now, of course, because this is a dream project, it has brought up all kinds of fears and all kinds of insecurities and things like that, especially going so long. But that's where enjoying the process and sort of enjoying the journey kind of comes into mind, because I could put that in the artwork, right? And I can give you guys, you know, part of my life story just to sort of help hopefully inspire you to go after your dreams, because I'm just a regular old person. But these are 39 cards, and now these are not all of the cards, but I think this gives you a good representation of what this deck will look like. In terms of size, it is going to be a little bit bigger. So far now, the plan is to be a little bit bigger than standard size. The hiccup is because we have now the tariffs and all of that, I have to find a manufacturer. And I've been looking for this even before the tariffs became a thing, within the states that will customize these cards for me. That would be ideal, right? And I say that would be ideal because if something goes wrong, I feel like it'll be easier for me to get to that place, no matter where it is within the country, than to have it manufactured overseas. However, I have considered that. I've done tons and tons of research in the realm of manufacturing this overseas. Looks like I'm a little bit frozen, so I'm hoping it's coming through. But that is something that I've definitely done research for. I would absolutely love for this to be a custom deck. I don't want it to be too expensive, because I know that indie decks tend to run a little bit on the higher side, and rightfully so. It's taken me a long time to do this, right? But I do want it to be somewhat accessible, or really as accessible as I can make it, where I'm not sort of losing out either, because it's still a business. But I would like for it, pricing wise, to be accessible. So that's going to be a little bit of a dance to figure out who can manufacture this at the specifications that I've already set in motion. I know that I have a couple of manufacturers overseas that will do it. So it's just sort of, and this is why I'm kind of glad it's taking as long as it is, because I can't imagine being done and ready to print now and then finding out that there's this like huge extra tax that I would have to pay once I receive the items. So things happen the way that they're supposed to, right? So everything happens in divine timing. But that is the goal. Now, this deck will come with a little white book, which will be like the standard guide book. I'm also in the process of writing and putting together a companion book. With that, a lot of the information that I share about the images here, and I don't always share all, but a lot of the information that I share throughout the process of doing these live streams will be in that. So there'll be lots of artist notes, lots of card breakdowns. That'll be the best sort of book to get if you really want to dive deep into the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So that's been a really, really fun experience. And I actually started writing that maybe I want to say maybe like March of 2020. That sort of I started that process. I'm really glad that I did, because at the time I was like, okay, I'm doing these pictures, sure enough, I'm doing the images for the cards, but something's telling me to go ahead and write some of this stuff down. I'm really glad that I did because I have not been as active as a reader lately. So some of the stuff that was very fresh on my mind was very fresh because I was actively reading, right? So I was doing like I think I was doing like one a day, which is a lot for me because I do written reading, so it takes a lot for me to do. So I was doing like one a day every day, right? So a lot of that information was very fresh on my mind, which was super helpful when it came time for me to actually sort of write the first couple of chapters. What I have left in that book is just card breakdowns, again, the artist notes, and finishing up the images, so I can have that within the book as well. So my idea for that one is to hey, Draw Sketchbook, so happy to see you, and PL, shout out to you as well. Hey, both of you guys, I'm so happy to have you here. But the goal for the companion book is to have, of course, the full size image so that I can point to certain things within the writing to break it down for you guys. Of course, tarot is, in all art in general, is very subjective, so I'm so excited to see people see their own things in it, right? So of course I'll give my odds and ends, but I don't want what I say to be sort of the end all to be all for what you see in these images. I'm just sort of the conduit, right? I'm just sort of putting these stuff together, and then from there I would love to know what you guys see in the images, right? So that's sort of where we are with the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So I have 39 cards left to do, which does seem like a lot. But I think it'll be okay. I'm really, really excited to see what I come up with. Now, again, with the minors, with the majors, because again, those are archetype cards, right? So those are major energetic cards. It was my goal to sort of do what I wanted to do with those, right? So the only ones that I think came super close to the source materials, probably the Emperor came really close, and I want to say Strength. But everything else, for the most part, maybe the Wheel of Fortune, maybe, but everything else sort of was whatever I wanted it to be, right? But of course it made sense to the meaning of those cards. With the minors, because we're dealing with everyday situations and things like that, for one, I get the chance to play with visual storytelling, which is always really nice, right? It's always nice to be able to do that. And then two, these will probably get a lot closer to the source material, because there's a lot of them, and I think some of the source material works really well for the meaning of the cards, right? So we'll play with that, and I love being able to kind of construct stories for the cards. It's like creating like a miniature soap opera and things like that. So it's a lot of fun. It really is, and I am enjoying the process, but I do have the goal of getting this bad boy completed, so we'll see how it goes. And again, I really, really appreciate you guys for being here with me through this. And I know some of you all have been here like since the beginning, so I really appreciate your patience on it. And I know that this is going to be a project that is going to be well worth the wait, because I've waited on cards. Like, I have definitely waited and watched other creators create stuff, and I was super excited to have. And so I know that anticipation, and I really, really appreciate you guys again for being here. So I'm excited to get this to you. So now what I'm doing is now I'm starting to add in some of the nuances, right? So again, we're just sort of laying in the baseline texture, but I am sort of adding in some of the like highlights and shadows within the tree using the guideline of my reference, right? So I actually have the actual tree here. It's one of these. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's probably this one. So this is the actual tree, right? So I took this image and I plugged it into my 3D model composition. So if I have any questions about like what's going on, for instance, I saw this one sort of cuts off, but I couldn't really tell why it cut off, right? There's also a branch back here that I did not include, but this is the actual tree and the actual setting. that I am somewhat recreating. I'm just sort of using this as a guideline, right? But what I did was I got this from Pixels. So what I did was I just kind of grabbed this as I was creating my 3D models. I set the tree in place so that I knew where to place my models, right? And then from there, I created this reference image that helps me out a whole lot. So we're not even seeing the whole tree. It doesn't even look like that particular tree now that I have it cropped and sort of pushed to the side and all of that. But all I'm doing now is just laying in, information, right? So on top of this, once I get to where I'm really happy with it, what I will do is go in and add even more texture on it. And that's where, again, some of those fun specialty brushes will come in handy. But we're just I want to emphasize this curve, right? So I'm just sort of laying in bits of information like so that I'm getting exactly the look that I want. And again, I'm not going for this exact tree, just sort of using it because I have it. All right. So we're going to do that. We're going to lay in a little bit of light here. Now, I think it was the Knight of Pentacles, which is one that I've always said I wanted to revisit. And I actually did revisit it recently. It just was on my mind to do. In it, I achieved this look. And I don't remember how the heck I did it. So I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. So the Knight of Pentacles was one that I really liked. But again, this was one where landscapes were like not my thing, right? But I created this sort of light effect, and I have no idea how I did it. But I have to figure this out because I really like it, and I would like to add it to this particular image because we have the sun shining down on this tree, and it's affecting the leaves and all of the things around it. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, I did work on this a little bit. I got it to where I was a little more happy with it than before. So we'll see how that goes. But as soon as it opens, let's see. Come on. And while it does, I guess for those of you who are just now joining us, I'll show you just one more time really quickly what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot looks like. And again, this is not all of the cards, but we do have 39 done. And I will have 39 more to do. This card that we're working on now is card number 40. And on Wednesday, we actually start a new card. So I'm doubling them up. I'm doing 2 at a time, which has been extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. So on Wednesdays, even though my Wednesday stream was sort of set aside for me to do other things, for right now, because my focus is to get this done expeditiously, but also not like I'm not rushing myself to do it. Wednesday, we're just working on another card. So we'll be working on the 4 of Swords. And in that one, my idea is to have, because that one deals a lot with contemplation. The original image of that is we're in sort of a tomb setting. There are 3 swords on the wall, and then there's the 4th sword is sort of underneath this tomb. Within that tomb, there is sort of this, it's open, right? So there's this actual sarcophagus. It's open, and we see the outline of whoever this tomb belongs to, right? But we don't necessarily see that person, and it's not sealed. So that means to me that this is a resting period, not necessarily a final rest. So what I would like to do is I want to sort of go back into creating a meditation scene. I already got it in my mind, like I know exactly what I want it to look like. I want to have someone sort of on their knees. Is it harikiri? Is that the ritual that they do in Japan where they kind of cut themselves open? I think that's what it is. But I kind of want it to look like that, but not quite like that, right? So I want to have, the way that I would like for it to be is to have the 3 swords as sort of a chandelier above our character, and then have our character kneeling down in meditation, and then the 4th sword sort of in front of him. And then the setting, I want it to be like I don't know if y'all have ever seen like those retreat spaces where you have the beautiful wood floors and there's like a jungle scenery, like very green, very lush, very tranquil and serene behind them. That's what I'm going for this one. So we'll see. I am going to use the 3D models again just to sort of pose my character and then play with it from there. So it looks like my and we're still playing this, so let me turn this off really quickly, but it does look like my file is still loading, so hopefully that'll come up soon so I can show you this particular area that I want to recreate. I just have no idea how I did it. So I guess that's somewhat the trouble with taking so long. That is one of the caveats with it. The other caveat is that because as an artist, you're constantly growing. I don't care how, and I've been an artist my entire life. I'll be 39 years old in exactly a month. It'll be on the 21st. So My earliest memories are of me drawing. I have been doing this for a very long time, right? I do not consider myself a master artist. I consider myself a student always, right? Because I'm always striving to improve. I'm always striving to learn new things. I know that landscapes are not my thing, so I know at some point I would love to sit down and actually study them so that I can get better at them, right? So I'm always learning and improving and doing those kinds of things, right? So my thinking is that as I'm continuing to create this, I'm getting better as an artist. I can see it. Right? I can see sort of the improvement in my artistic skills. And so one of the worries that sort of came up along the way is, okay, if it's taking me so long to do it, will there be a drastic difference in the quality of the art that I'm creating? I would say no. So far, I don't think so. I think that it has gotten better. Like, for instance, I can see the improvement just in the character, in the woman by the tree, just in this one, where I can kind of see how much better this character looks versus just in the way that she's rendered and not having sort of harsh blacks and harsh lights and all of that. I can see the improvement, right? I don't think it's so drastic where like it doesn't belong, but I do sort of see it. But that was just something that came up, and then that's how it goes. All right, so in this image, this is the Knight of Pentacles. The trouble that I had, and I have an area here that's called 2025 edits. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna be a little transparent here. All right, a little vulnerable. Now, when I was creating this scene, I had an idea. So I love rocky. I grew up around mountains, right? So I love sort of mountains and things like that, rocks. So I just put this rogue rock in the middle of this scene, and it absolutely has, like, it doesn't look right to me now that I'm looking at it with 2025 eyes, and I finished this in 2022. I always knew that this rock didn't look right even when I was doing it in 2022. So I added a little more information to it. It's not great, but I think that doing it this way, if I had taken the rock out, I was going to have to adjust other stuff, and I just didn't feel like doing all of that. So I just added some more details and information to it. But the area that I actually really, really love, and I'm going to zoom in here. If you guys can see this sort of light, right? This light that hits the rocks that look like trees, or like the light is shining through the trees. I love that, but I have no idea how I did that. I don't know. I don't know how I did it. So I would like to do something like that within the Four of Cups. But I do like, that was my biggest sort of eyesore for this particular image. The rest of it is okay. I think it lends itself to the meaning of this card. The Knight of Pentacles is someone who moves very slow and deliberately, right? So he is in no particular rush. Where like your Knight of Swords and your Knight of Wands tend to move extremely fast, right? They're really getting the job done. This one he's taking his time, and the best way that I knew to illustrate that was to have him sort of on his journey, because all of the knights are on a journey, right? To have him sort of climbing these stairs up into the mountains. We don't know where he's going, whether he's going to this big mountain or not. I have no idea. But that light effect, I want to be able to recreate that in this particular image that we're working on now. And that was one of the cards that I always wanted to revisit. So as I get better, as I continue to grow as an artist, one of the beautiful things is that I can go back and do those. And I might even go back and revisit it again, right? Because I don't know exactly how happy I am with it. But we will do that one time, when I feel like it. But yeah, so that is one of the things that sort of came up with me. I was like, sometimes the mind will come up with all kinds of stuff to worry about, right? So I'm like, oh my goodness, as I'm getting older, and I'm getting, better, and I'm doing these cards and they're getting better, I wonder is there going to be like a huge difference in the quality? No. I definitely see the improvement in the quality of these cards, but in terms of there being a huge difference, I would say no, not at all. If anything, it sort of enhances it a lot better. And because I have like half of the cards left to do, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like have maybe 10 or so, and like those 10 are drastically better than the others. Nothing like that. So that's nice. That's nice to sort of help me come over that own, my own mental block around it. All right. So we're just sort of, again, playing with texture with this brush. And I would say that we're coming along really well. And again, I don't have I don't have the sketch on. So this is with the sketch off. This is getting closer to the way that it would look once this tree is finished. And I like it. I like sort of having these gnarly parts, right? So I want to have a knot in this area. So I want to add that there. I want this to twist around, right? And so we're just adding this in, keeping again in mind that each of these branches is a cylinder. So we want to do that. Now it does look choppy. I'm looking at it in the preview, which is covered up by my face. So, but from you guys' point of view, the color does look a bit choppy, so that's okay. What we can do from here is I'm going to add a layer on top, and what I'm actually going to do, I believe, I'm going to try something. What I would like to do is go into my water brushes. Now these brushes I got from the artist Aaron Blaze. Now Aaron Blaze used to work for Disney. He still is very, very active. He has some wonderful art classes and things like that, but he offered or sold these water brushes. Bought these water brushes, and with these water brushes I'm able to get some really nice texture, right? Now of course these are meant to be water. I'm going to play with them because I don't know which one I want. I have an idea, but I'm not entirely sure yet, and I won't be until I play with it. So we sort of get this scratchy texture a little bit. Now because this one only paints horizontal and not the other way around, I don't think that's the one we want to go with. So I'm gonna try another one. But you guys can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? So I'm adding sort of just that in-between shading. We'll kind of see how it goes. What does this one look like? Make it a little bit bigger. Are we adding anything? No, there it is. Okay. Not quite. Maybe we can add a little bit of that here. Do want it to show up a bit, right? Nope. Don't like that. So, and that's how it goes. I'll grab a brush, I'll try it. If I don't like it, then I'll move on, right? And I always undo. I think this is the one I want. I can always undo. I can always go back and erase. And that's where the power of working on separate layers comes into play, right? Because there we go. This is the texture that I want. So because if I'm working on a separate layer, then I don't have to worry about messing up all of this wonderful like chalky look that I've already accomplished. Make sure I select the right color. There we go. So now we're adding a little bit more green to this tree, right? Doesn't look super it's kind of subtle, which is nice. That's what we want. I sort of want to blend these colors together, right? Like so. And I don't even know if you guys can see it. What I'll do is I'll show you on this side what it looks like. So if I was to add this texture like so, that's what it looks like, right? So we get a little more of that wood grain look. Now if I wanted to, I can go in with a little bit of a highlight color, because there are these like I don't know what this is called, but like these really light, right? And this is a water brush. So, you know, just because a brush has one function doesn't mean that you can't be creative in how you use that brush, right? So now we're really getting into, okay, now this is starting to look like a tree. And again, I have my sketch off, which helps me out a whole lot. Now, if I had my sketch on, we would get a little bit of a false read. It would be kind of difficult to tell how tree-like we're getting, right? But as I turn off that sketch and just sort of lay in these textures like so, lay in these highlights like that, right? Enhance our shadows with this water brush. We sort of get the same, and I don't even like it just did this rogue kind of cross wave. That's perfectly okay, right? Because we know that there aren't any straight lines in nature. So we're just adding this in just like this, right? And that's giving us so much more depth to our tree, right? And then on top of this, we'll go in with some of our plant brushes, and we will add that moss on top. And I'll actually do that in another layer as well, just in case I don't like it. I mean, you know, I might do something where in my mind it works, right? But in application, it does not. So we'll do that. We'll continue to do that. And that sort of helps to blend those colors together. Another thing that I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to go back into my tree details. I'm going to grab my smudge brush, and I am just going to very precariously rub along this line, right? Just to soften it up a bit. So we're going to let it auto save, and as soon as it does, we'll play some more with that. Now, the beauty again of working on these separate layers is that, so there's this green area here. If I don't like how this looks in this area, I can actually move this down without affecting the texture that we just created. But what I'm doing now is just sort of blending out this somewhat harsh shadow, right? And I'm doing it in a way that's not smooth. I'm not trying to be smooth at all, because trees are not smooth. This tree that I'm using as a reference is not smooth at all. And then what I can do, because I'm seeing that our texture is sort of going into this area we don't want it in, we just take an eraser and take it out, right? Just like so. Just like that, we can clean it up, right? So we can have as much fun with it as we would like. I'm gonna go back to my water brush. Now, here's the beautiful thing about Clip Studio Paint. I have this water brush selected. Let's say I go back to another brush menu. Let's say I go back to my Eric Anthony brushes. If I go back to the water, I don't have to search through that water brush again. I can just pick it right back up, right? And add in some of this, you know, same old texture. I'm just gonna add it in, just like so. And then I can go back over to my regular tree details layer, because what I'm seeing is I kind of don't like how this is creating a bit of a V. Right, so I'm gonna bring this green down just a bit, like so, so that we emphasize the twisting. And if we wanted to emphasize even further that rough texture that we've added, we can actually go into that layer, pick something like a regular old round brush, make it pretty small, right? And then we can go in here with a highlight color, and we can just sort of add, you know, more nuances, if that's what we want to do. Now that to me looks a little bit too light for the area, so I'm going to undo that twice, right? I'm going to pick something. I'm actually going to pick this darker color, and I'm just going to raise the value up a couple of degrees, and then we can add nuances. And that's not bright enough, we'll go up a little bit more, right, like so. And we can just add, and this is the awesome thing about landscapes, right? There really are no rules. So long as you know that these are basic shapes, right? This is just a series of cylinders, and we know where our light source is sort of coming from. We can get in here and have as much fun as we like, right? With no consequence or anything like that. We do want to make sure that we're selling the story that this is an actual tree, so we want to get as close to possible. We don't have to go for perfection, right? Don't have to do that. So I'm just going to emphasize this area because there's a little bit of a dip here, and we'll put some greenery in here, so I'm not going to worry too much about that looking odd right now. I just want to add a little bit of the shadow behind our main character, and it's getting a little more light than I would like here, so what I'm going to do is just sort of darken this up a bit. Again, because this is a tree, I don't want nothing smooth, right? I don't want it to look smooth at all. And again, because this is on a separate layer from our water texture, anything that we add to or around it won't necessarily change what we've done there. So we can do something like this and something like that. All right, so that looks good, right? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label my layer 2 as tree. We're going to call it bark texture. Now what I would like to do is actually play a little bit with the mossy look. Now I did this with the 2 of Swords, and I believe I used one of these brushes from the not the Eric Anthony child, from the artist Devin Kurtz. She has these wonderful grass brushes. I have no idea which one it was. So again, just like we did with our water brush, I'm going to sort of pick out brushes that I think would look well, that I think would work. Maybe this one. Let's see. Let's get us a nice dark. Actually, let me go back to my other color reference. Let's get us a nice green, right? And then we'll try it out. So I would like to have something like this, but not quite. It's not quite the size that I'm going for, but we'll sort of lay some of this in just a bit. No, I don't like that. All right, so we'll just erase it. No big deal, right? But I'm going to play around with some of these just to sort of see. There we go. Something like this, but a little more dense, right? And maybe not quite as dark. So we'll sort of start with this. So we're sort of laying in this moss, right? And then we're laying in one base color, and then we'll go on top of that with another color. And I'm doing this all on a separate layer just in case I do all of this and I decide I don't like how it look. Right? We can do that. We can do what we want to do, but we can go back and change all of that, right? So from here, actually what I'm going to do is deselect my tree. So now I won't have such harsh lines, but I can kind of bring this grassy texture, this leaf mossy texture out front, right? So it becomes a little more a part of, so it looks a little more realistic, right? We can kind of sell the idea that this tree has these mossy parts to it. Again, this is, I think this is an actual leaf brush, right? And this is just the one that we picked that seems to be working for the job. It's a little too flat for right now. So what I'm going to do is, again, lay in these, sort of the idea of it. And then we'll go in, add, we'll blur out some parts of it. We'll erase some parts of it. And we're remembering that some of this is going to get cut off in the printing process. So a lot of this toward the edge is going to get cut off. So we don't have to be so precious about it, right? And just like we did with the actual tree texture, which we seem to be getting rid of a little bit. Just like we did with that, we don't have to be so precious about it, right? So I'm actually going to take a kneaded eraser, which is going to erase with a little bit of texture. And I'm going to remove some of this, right? Some of this I may not like so well, not so heavy, right? We'll just do this, something like that. And we'll go back into our brush. And I'm actually going to go with a deeper color right on top of what we've already done. And that's going to give us a little bit of dimension, like so. And we're not going to leave this just like this, right? This is a nice foundation. It's kind of sets us up for success. But we're not going to let this brush do all the work. We want to go in and blur out some areas we want to blur out. We want to add highlights with a different brush so that we're getting the texture that we like. And we're just sort of using this particular image as a reference for that. So we're adding all this in. And maybe this grows a little bit like this, right? And we're just playing with it. Again, if I decide I don't like this, right, I can always go in and erase it. Now what I'm doing here, just to sort of soften up some of the hard edges, is I'm going to go and grab a smudge brush. This one is called Frost. I think this one came from Eric Anthony too. Child, I got all kinds of his brushes. But all I'm going to do is sort of blend out some of this, right? So it's not so hard. In some areas, it's okay to have those hard leafy edges. That's okay. But we do want it to look like we want it to look like we drew it in, right? We want to look like we cheated. We want it to match sort of the rest of the image. So I'm just going to take this smudge brush like so. We're going to soften some of this up. Not all of it, because some of it we do actually want the texture of. We'll soften just a little bit of it up, right? Like so. So if I was to turn that off, it looks good either way. We could do plain tree, or we can add a little razzle dazzle to it with the moss. And I actually don't like it down here, so I'm going to take this out. Just like that. No biggie. Just like so. Because also too, I wanted to keep in mind that I'm going to have some bushes and things in the background, so that helps, right? Alright, so on the new layer, yes, a new layer, we're going to actually add some highlights to this, right? So I'm going to grab that same brush. And this time I'm going to go a little bit lighter, but a little less saturated. And I'm just going to add some dots of highlight in here, just like so. We don't have to have it all over, just a little bit. And if I don't like how that's looking, I take that same smudge brush and I can kind of clean some of that out just a bit. And I can even take just a plain old brush. So we're going to go back to B brush, and I'm going to go back to my hotline brush, and I'm just going to squiggle, right? Just like so. To me, I like doing this a lot because for one, it's fun. It's like doodling. But also because it's going to accentuate some of that texture. Now we can get fancy with it, and we can actually go like in the direction of some of the leaves. We don't have to. It's up to you. Right? So something like that. And looking at it, I think what I would like to do is actually maybe, and I'm looking on you guys' screen so I can see what you see. Maybe I'll go a little bit darker because maybe I don't really like, actually ain't no maybe to it. I may not like how green that is. So I'm going to go just a bit darker. Now I'm viewing this, the preview is actually in CMYK. So that's why it has such a dull look to it, right? I'm viewing this in CMYK, but this is an RGB file until I export it as a CMYK file. So what you guys see may look a little bit, I don't know if it's brighter for you or duller for you, but I'm just sort of wanting to get this as somewhat what I want, right? I'm going to actually lower the opacity of some of this. Let me see what this looks like. Something like this, maybe. And then what I think I'm going to do is actually duplicate this on top. And then the one on top, I'm going to go ahead and smudge it out, right? So we're getting the texture sort of underneath it, so it blends in a bit. It doesn't necessarily look like it's just placed on top, and we're gonna create the look that it's meant to be here, right? And I just did that by duplicating it, and then of course we have the original layer underneath. So we're just playing, right? Just moving things around like so. And that's about it, right? So I think that's good for today. I think I may go back and mess with it a little bit more, but I just wanted to show you guys my approach to creating a tree. Now, what I would like to do after this, once I sort of take a break for a little bit, is I will actually go in and create some greenery around it. Do I want the Spanish moss? I'm not really sure. I don't know. We'll see. But that's just sort of how I play with different brushes and different textures, right? It doesn't have to be anything fancy. We definitely aren't reaching for perfection, but we do want this to feel like a part of this particular scene. And as I create additional elements within this composition, I want it to feel the same way. I want it to feel like it's a part of this particular scene. Now that looks good. Let me turn that off. So I have those squiggles in. If I turn these squiggles off, okay, not too bad. But we'll add some bushes and things like that so that it feels like they're sitting in the middle of this forest. So again, with this particular card, the story is the story that I'm telling myself as I create this is that this young woman is sort of sitting in the middle of this forest. She's in contemplation, right? So she's giving all of her attention to the three bowls, the three singing bowls, the vessels, the cups in front of her. That's where her attention is, right? She's not really paying attention to anything around her, not the trees, not the leaves. There are birds and butterflies. She's not really paying any attention to any of that. She looks somewhat bored. She looks a little bit tired, maybe. She just looks reserved into herself. And here comes this beautiful man in all of his armor and regalia, and he's offering her a different bowl, right? A different look. Now, in the original source material, there is a hand sort of reaching out from the clouds that's offering the person, I think it's a man who's sitting by a tree, the cup from the Ace of Cups, and that is to say that maybe he is offering her or that person a new opportunity, maybe a new relationship, all of that. But his attention isn't necessarily on it. And I don't even know if in that picture, I have to see if I have it still in the references. I don't even know if he's paying any attention to the three cups, but our character is. Our character is paying very much attention to what's in front of her. Now, we can read this in a couple of different ways. Is the guy sort of offering her a new opportunity to rescue our new character or our female character? Is he offering her something to make her better? Or is he just sort of offering something to be there? We don't know. Is he offering her a new relationship? Is he just offering her just a new point of view? We're not really sure. It just sort of depends on how it comes up for you in your reading. But that is the story that I have created. Now I have modeling the male character's clothing after the Knight of Cups because I really like how I like how he was dressed, right? The only problem with the Knight of Cups, or sort of translating that over to this particular card, is that the Knight of Cups is dressed in very warm wear, right? So he has like the fur collar. He's covered from, neck to ankle. You know what I mean? But our female character is sort of in this forest, and she only has like a top and like some shorts, so she's mostly, her skin and stuff is out. So to me that means that this is a very warm environment. So as I'm clothing my knight um, I don't want him to look like he's gonna be hot in this environment, right? So I wanted to make sure that I translate that, but I kept the color palette pretty much the same. I'll add some of the same, like the mud cloth look and all of the things like that. So this is our original Four of Cups. So of course it gets very close. So our Four of Cups gets very close to the source material, and that's okay. That's going to happen quite a bit as we move through these minor arcana cards. But again, sort of adding that story, adding that sort of nuance to it, I think makes it fun for me, right? And I think it gives some additional context to the cards and to the readings. So as I am creating that second book, so of course the deck is going to come with the little white book, which is just a little pamphlet that tells all the baseline meanings. When it comes to that companion book, all of these stories that I'm kind of coming up with for these cards is going to appear there, right? So you'll have a little more context. You'll have a little more about why I chose certain motifs and why I chose certain symbols. Again, with the man holding the cup, when I was doing some research about jumping the broom for the Four of Wands, one of the things that I learned that is in certain cultures, when a couple gets married, it's usually the woman. There's like a line of men, her brothers, her brothers-in-law, and her husband, and then she offers her husband that cup, and that's how they announce that they're officially married. So that kind of adds some context or some different nuance to this particular image as well. So so adding stories of being able to do the visual storytelling has been so much fun when it comes to this particular project. It definitely helps, because one of the things that I've always said, even before I gave it a name of me acknowledging that it is visual storytelling, I would say, well, okay, when I have a new card, I just want to make sure that whatever the meaning of the card is, I can make that or figure out what that looks like in real life. So again, this is just sort of me giving it nuance and giving it context and things like that. So I really like how that's coming along. And again, we're at the halfway mark. So next week we'll be streaming on the 29th. The 30th marks 1 year anniversary of Paint With Me Live. So I'm very excited about that. 1 year of streaming, my goodness. I had no idea I could make it this far. And streaming, and I actually enjoy it, and I look forward to it every Sunday. So my goal for next Sunday is to host a giveaway. So I'll give away something. I still ain't figured it out. So I got this week to figure out what that something is. So please join me next Sunday at 3:30 p.m. Central. If you like a little less chatty live stream and you want to just watch me start on a new card, because I'll be starting on the Four of Swords, please join me Wednesday at around 12:45-ish. We'll see. I will schedule that ahead of time. So if you see it pop up on your YouTube feed, just hit notify me, and as soon as I go live, it will let you know, so that you can join me on Wednesday as we start a new card for this series. I'm so happy with the progress. I'm so thankful to have each and every one of you guys here. Shout out to you, Draw Sketchbook, and shout out to you, PL. Thank you so much for joining me. If I missed you in the chat, or if you dropped in, please let me know that you were here. I would love to know you're here, right? I would love to know that you're enjoying the process. Do me a huge favor and hit the thumbs up button. That helps me out a whole lot. And if you have a project that you think I would be a perfect fit for, please check out the description below with all of the links for that, as well as all of the links to purchase artwork for me as well. So without further ado, I'm not going to hold you guys too long. We did a pretty good live stream, about an hour and 8 minutes or so. So I hope you all have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. And please do me a favor. Work on something that you're passionate about this week. Figure out what that is. Work on it. It ain't even got to be like every day. It does not have to be 30, every other day or something like that. But pick 15 minutes one of these days this week and work on something that you actually want to do and that you're passionate about, and then come back and tell me about it. Okay. Until then, have a happy, creative, and prosperous week. Peace.